Battle of the Instant Songwriters, where you go on the show and they give you a topic and theoretically you're supposed to write the song in an hour. I'd say it was more like an hour and a half for me. And you play the song and that's it basically. But they obviously find none of the people who go on that segment are like famous already, you know? So I have a couple other friends around the scene who've done the same segment. So I think they're just going at it on Instagram or wherever, trying to scout people. And they found me, I guess. And I actually thought it was like a fake message maybe at first, because I get a lot of fake messages from people saying, hey, we can do this, blah, blah, blah. And I saw it and I was like, what?
This is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, this is Kate Clover.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Hi, my name is Madeline Rose.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
It's Tim Howard here from Mike and the Mechanics.
Hello, I'm Amanda Lehman.
I'm Billy Harvey.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Casey Sampson from the band Twist Stop.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Mitchell.
Hey, guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
You're listening to Almost Famous Magazine.
Come join us for this interview. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to The Hang right here on Almost Famous Magazine. Thanks so much for everyone who tunes in, watches our hangs, keeps up with us, shares, likes, you know the drill, subscribes, the whole 9 yards. We really appreciate it, and it makes it fun for us to come back and keep holding these great conversations. Today, no different. We're hanging with Leo Lovechild today. Now, Leo, his story is interesting. He was kind of his music is born out of basement venues, dive bars, and subway cars on the Lower East Side in New York. He's building something big. He's taking socials by storm. I found him on Instagram, and then when I learned about what he was doing, his really great videos, and that he'd been on Jimmy Fallon's Battle of the Instagram Songwriters, I knew he had to hang. So, Leo, welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start at the beginning, and we'll work our way up to where we are today. What's your musical background story? What's your origin story? Did music find you, or did you find music? Tell me about that.
I definitely say we found each other at an early age. My family is like in the arts. I would say, well, not I would say, they're definitely in the arts. My mother's dad, so my maternal grandfather, was a viola player in the New York Philharmonic, and he was in a pretty successful career doing like classical music. By the time I came around, he was out of the orchestra and he was like teaching at Juilliard. And I was close. I was him and his wife. I'm their only grandchild. And I grew up like 30 blocks from them. So we were close when I was a kid, and he started me on music. They wanted me to do the Suzuki violin program, which is like a place where kids go to be like super like by the book trained classical musicians. And my parents, who are a lot more alternative, I guess you could say, were not really so into that idea. And so they said, you can teach him. So my granddad became my teacher. He was my first teacher, and he taught me how to read music and started me playing like classical pieces on the violin. So that's how I came to music. And I didn't really love that so much. I had a good relationship with my grandfather, and at the beginning I liked it and I enjoyed music. But I never really took to the like classical violin thing, to be honest. We had like a piano in my apartment growing up, so I also kind of like would fiddle around on the piano in my early years, and eventually my parents let me switch. They let me quit the violin lessons, and they found me a piano teacher. And that was me. I was maybe 10 at that time. Started writing songs shortly after that. And I was like gigging in the city by like 15. So I would say that that's kind of like where it all started.
15 in the city. It's a pretty young age to get to start breaking your chops like that. What were some of those early gigs? What was that like for you?
So the reason I started getting into that was because, I was writing all these songs. Like by 13 years old, I was super into 60s music. I got really into like I was raised on people like Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, eventually Bob Dylan. And then, by my preteen years, I really started to get obsessed with all that stuff. And I started writing songs, and I guess, my parents were supportive and they thought the songs were good. So they took me to like a studio out in Long Island, and I recorded live just by myself with a piano and a guitar, like 12 songs or something that I had written, and we made a CD. And my mom was going to this hairdresser at the time, who she still goes to. I actually get my hair done by her now. She's a cool lady. She's, older generation, like East Village type, who does like hair for like people in the arts world, musicians and stuff. And at the time, this woman was her assistant, young woman who was kind of trying to get into the industry side of the entertainment industry stuff. And I guess my mom went in for a hair appointment, showed them my CD, and this woman thought it was good and came to my house to meet me and hear me play, and was like, I want to be your manager. I was probably like in ninth or 10th grade at the time. And I was like, cool. And she booked me some shows around like the Lower East Side. I played my first gig in public outside my school at a place called The Living Room, which no longer exists, on Ludlow Street. And yeah, they were fun. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I was just like having fun with it. Performing was always like kind of like second nature for me. We always had to do the early shows, and then they would kick us out because everyone was underage. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, you said it was like 11, 12, 13, you started writing lyrics, and in this day and age of the modern music world, I mean, what was it that really connected you with people like Woody Guthrie or like, Bob Dylan and those singer-songwriters from that, late 50s, mid-ish 60s kind of period? What was it that connected with you that resonates in the lyrics you were writing at such a young age?
It's just such a hard. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. I really don't know. I think about it and it makes no sense. But I don't know. I think I was just around it, a lot from a young age. Like my parents were into the Grateful Dead and like folk music, and I don't know. I liked it. I mean, later in life, when I think back on that time and starting to write songs, I realized that I was probably starting to, without knowing it, deal with anxiety and depression. And I think I was like subconsciously like writing to like do something about that, which, 20 years later or whatever, is nothing has really changed. But something in that, I don't know. I just, I think that like lyrics and music is like the superior form of art that exists. It makes sense to me. It's very immediate. You don't even have to think about it and you can feel it.
Were you taken with being someone who found a way to articulate themselves at a young age? Because writing is a very, very active thing, right? I mean, you can have the thoughts in your head, but you have to physically get them out, whether you type them or write them in a book, however you right. choose to translate it out. Was growing up in school, was English and literature something that you gravitated to, that helped
Yeah.
kind of
So
fulfill this?
my mom was a novelist for like 20 years. That was her first career. She wrote, she was like that was her job, her day job. She wrote what they would call chick lit, which was like books targeted towards preteen girls. And yeah, that was her career. And then she became an English teacher. So she threw books at me like crazy when I was a kid. Reading was very emphasized in my household.
I was going to say, I would hope that it was she presented you with books. If she's throwing them at you, she could be an angry mother. So
I was definitely resistant as a child to reading a bit, but not crazy. I will say she's good at she recommends good books. So um, it was all music, literature, visual art too. My dad is a visual artist. That never really was my thing, but I was around this a lot as a kid. And my parents, neither of them. My dad is an amateur musician, I would say, and actually a songwriter as well. He would play his songs around the house when I was a kid, so that was actually some of my first exposure to songwriting. And again, amateur musician, but a very creative man, and had a couple silly little clever songs, I would say. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that him being a visual artist was necessarily lost on you, because I don't know if he's involved in your video production, the stuff
Not
that
at
you're doing.
all.
At least I see on Instagram, but you're definitely being very creative in what you're doing. I mean, the first video I saw had you in, I don't know, I can't remember the number of different locations, playing a line from the song here or there. I mean, they're definitely thoughtful and appear to have some thought behind them. So
I mean, look, if it was up to me, I would make albums and have someone else as my creative director and tell me, "Hey, show up here. We're going to take some photos and move on with my life." But it's not really the world we live in. So you learn.
So how did you start to kind of build the audience that you have on Instagram to be able to have enough following to drive up in other people's feeds? Because again, I found you by accident. I'm like, wait a minute, it takes something for me to be drawn in, right? So how did you start to really build that audience, and what has that audience been doing to really help you get more notoriety?
I don't know. I feel like I'm struggling. I feel like social media is a struggle for me, frankly. But it's good to hear. I hear from other people. They don't see it that way. They don't necessarily see that side. I started by playing live. That's been my main thing always. I love playing live music, and I feel in my element when I do that. So I would say it's all started there. That's how we started doing things. I was like one of those weird kids who like didn't have social media until like 11th, 12th grade. So I came to this late. My Instagram page actually was started by my first girlfriend. She like started the page for me, and she was like, "You have to get on this shit if you want to be a musician." And I was like, okay. Now I can't go like 10 minutes without opening my goddamn Instagram page. It sucks. And you try not to get caught up in the numbers game, but it's hard. I've done a lot of like minimal advertising with the budget I have. It works sometimes, so.
I mean, this is an interesting topic, I think, given that your penchant is for kind of an older age of music, going back to the time period we talked about, and your thoughtfulness toward being more of a singer-songwriter and a focus on that. Do you feel that having to do what's necessary in today's music business hampered you in any way?
Definitely. Yes.
How so?
I think in the end, I spend so much time thinking about and focusing on things that have nothing to do with making good songs. and it hampers my psyche more than anything else. It brings my psyche down, and that sucks.
Is it just because of the endorphin issue with social media, or is it the things that are people saying? I mean, how
No, I don't care if people say negative things if that's happened to me. I think it's just sometimes you feel like we as an artist you feel like you're screaming into the void, and that's like not the most fun thing. I even recent weeks I've had intense like moments of feeling like visibly seeing myself doing something for people and impacting their lives on one hand, and then on the other hand feeling like I'm screaming into a void and I can't get people to pay attention in the way that I'd like. So I see both simultaneously, which is an interesting place to be. um but that's life. um
and
Obviously,
I mean,
the modern technology, it provides so much, and also I think does so much negative at the same time in the arts and every other regard in life. So
well, I mean, if there was one positive other than bringing us together here today, I mean, you got noticed by Jimmy Fallon's people. Tell me that story.
that's true. um I think they've just been going through the scene here in New York trying to find songwriters. Like, they do this thing called Battle of the Instant Songwriters, where you go on the show and they give you a topic, and theoretically you're supposed to write the song in an hour. I'd say it was more like an hour and a half for me. um and you play the song and that's it basically. But they obviously find none of the people who go on that segment are like famous already, you know. So I have a couple other friends around the scene who've done the same segment. So I think they're just going at it on Instagram or wherever, trying to scout people, and they found me, I guess. And I actually thought it was like a fake message maybe at first, because I get a lot of fake messages from people saying, "Hey, we can do this, blah blah blah," and I saw it and I was like, "What?" And but then I looked into the guy. I was like, "This looks like a pretty uh, legitimate account," and followed through. I had to do like a little audition tape that I sent them, and I was in their backlog for a while. They did a couple segments and they said, "Oh, we're keeping you in the log. The writers are going a different direction for this one." And eventually they hit me up. They said, "Hey, we're doing this segment. We're going to tape it tomorrow. Are you free?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll make myself available, to be on television in front of 2 million people. Why not?" So it was cool. It was a wild experience, honestly.
And what kind of outcomes? I mean, anything positive come of it? Either on getting people to pay attention to your music, buy your music at all, or help with all the socials.
I'd say my Instagram popped off for like a week or two. The engagement on those posts when I was doing that was the best I've ever had organically. Other than that, I don't know. It's possible I may have gotten like one good paying gig from it. I'm not actually sure how these people found me, but it's possible that it was from that, because when I went to play that show, they were like asking about that. So I think they might have seen that. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, something positive obviously came from it, and hopefully, I mean, you can validate this. It at least energized you and gave you some validation that this is a good path for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that it was just a funny thing, And I mean, I've told that story so many times now. I think it's funny that maybe like my most widely heard song that I've ever written now is a song from a prompt about a 7-year-old TikTok sensation. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, you were given an hour or so to write a song. They give you a prompt. What is your songwriting process like? Are you a music first, lyrics second, lyrics first, music second? What's your process of creativity?
I'd say I've taken different for different songs, but my most frequently taken process is lyrics and music together, sitting in my room with a guitar, maybe a piano. Most of my songs, I would say I've fully written them and can play them by myself on a guitar before I ever start recording them or before I bring them to the band. But that's not every song I've written. So there are songs I've made that have come about in the studio a little more. There's songs where like I had one line for a while, and like my song Kill Bob, which was the first out of 4 singles I've released over the past 4 months, and all those singles will be on an album soon. That song, I had the first line sitting in my consciousness for a while. I'm thinking how I want to kill Bob Dylan. Maybe then I can finally get famous. I just thought it was kind of funny and like whatever. And I was like, this could be a song. I had that in my consciousness, and I don't know. Eventually I was able to get to the point with it where I wrote the whole song. Yeah, usually I have one line or something that pops into my head, and then I'll sit with a guitar and flesh it out. But depends. I've also written songs like on Pro Tools a little bit, but I do that less.
So you've got a number of songs on, believe it's a Bandcamp page, right? You can still
got a lot on Bandcamp. My whole catalog's on Bandcamp, but Spotify, Apple Music, wherever.
Well, I mean, we're big believers in buying and supporting musicians. So let me ask you this: for people who are getting introduced to you today while we're sitting here hanging out, are there 1 or 2 songs that you've got so far in your catalog that are available that you think really represent the artist that you want to be in a way that it's the best way to whet their appetite and introduce them to your music? What 1 or 2 songs might that be?
Definitely All My Friends, which came out this past March. That's the best representation of, I'd say, what I'm doing now and the album that's going to come out soon. All My Friends, Hats Off is a good one to start with. Bad Behavior. All of those are more up-tempo, kind of like driving, energetic songs. I also have plenty that's not up-tempo driving songs, more, ballads and whatnot. Sunshine is one of my favorite ones. I mean, some of my favorite songs that I've released are songs that haven't done as well as, I have a song called Costume Boxes and another one called Arts and Crafts that I just think from a songwriting perspective are some of my strongest songs. But they're not songs that are built to be like commercially successful. Like they're not pop songs exactly. They're dark. Well, they're dark and they're poetic. So,
yeah, but like I got a degree in filmmaking, and
I have a degree in poetry. Pointless.
A degree in filmmaking, and I'm a photographer, and what I have noticed sometimes in my journey is that the things that I create that I think are like the greatest thing next to sliced bread, the one that's like, oh my God, this is going to set the world on fire, and it doesn't. And then something that I think is maybe a throwaway or not my best work, people absolutely love. I mean, I don't understand it fully because why don't they see it through my eyes? But then again, keeping in mind that they have their own set of eyes and it's their perception, not mine, that determines their love or hate of something.
I totally agree. I mean, you never know. You got to throw it out and hope. I feel like I haven't done enough of that. I've got hundreds of songs that have just been hoarded over time as well. But I would say Hats Off, Bad Behavior, and All My Friends are songs that I felt super strong about, that I felt would go over really well. And they did. They immediately became staples in our live set as soon as I wrote it and we started playing it as a band, and have been no matter how they do on streaming or whatever, because that's kind of irrelevant. There's songs that I see people knowing at my shows. So, I'd say those three are great places to start. They're, they cover everything from hard driving rock and roll to country, which is kind of like where do we lie? Yeah, they're good songs, good guitar parts, great guitar solos, which is an important part of my music. So
you've got 100 or so songs that haven't been released. What is coming up with this album that's coming out? How many songs will be on it? Are there any standouts that once it drops we should be be on the lookout for? What's the feel of the album? Give us some ideas.
I can't comment on which songs to be highlights. As we just said, take what you take and like what you like. I have people who like all various songs in my catalog as far as my friends are concerned. But so the album, it's going to be called Skyscraper Country, which is, I would say, very much our band's band delving into country music, which is something that we've scraped the surface at in the past, but we've never really gone fully at it. So I've been playing with a guy named Aaron Monis for a decade now. Over a decade, actually. He's been my only lead guitar player in my live band for the entirety of me running a band. Great guitar player, also one of my best friends. The two of us have since, for years kind of been like, oh, one day we're going to make a country album that's like really country music. Yeah, I would say the time was just right to do it. I had enough songs. Honestly, I mentioned this song, All My Friends. I think things shifted after I wrote that song and we brought it into the live set. I was kind of like the spark for getting into country music a little harder, and it just happened to come at a time when country music is like having its moment. Everywhere, even in New York City, it's having its moment, which is crazy to me as someone who's been here my whole life and grew up on like roots music. It's like, yeah, it seems like it's having its moment a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you, if you just said something at the beginning that I think is the potential for a great song that goes back to what we were talking about before. Take what you take, like what you like. I think that's a great line. Maybe we've been creative together today.
Yeah.
Take what you take, like what you like. Maybe I think I can think of a lot of good ideas for a song about that. So the album's coming out, and what are your plans for the remainder of 2025? Are you going to support it with a bunch of shows in New York? What are your goals with it?
We're going to play in New York, a release show at least. And I'm sure, we stay active enough in the New York area. So we're always playing here. We're putting a tour together for October to hopefully get further. And we're seeing what comes together. The plan is to play as much as we can, and release more music soon. I got a lot of stuff that I want to come out, songs in the backlog that have already been recorded that I just never really got around to releasing, songs that I've written, over the past 4 years or whatever that did not belong on this project, that we haven't recorded yet. So lots of stuff to do. This album is, like I said, it's our entry into country music. I also would say it's different than maybe past albums in the sense that it's a little less like personal. Most of the songs, not completely, it's still personal. It comes from a real place, but I realized once I started to make this album that a lot of my country songs, some of the songs on the album are old, like my song Roses. That one was written years ago and kind of just sat around doing nothing. Um, my song Ain't Nothing Worse, that song is 10 years old at this point. Um, so I kind of had like random country songs that never made it onto a project, and then started writing more. And I realized that a lot of the country songs I wrote, it's like I've used that genre a little bit as a vehicle to be more playful and like sarcastic, versus like more like folk and indie music, which has just been a space for more like serious and like personal music. Um, so I'd say it's almost like a concept album. You could call it like a modern country rock, like opera, that is sort of like a fictional thing, but not fictional at the same time. It's almost like caricaturizing. I'm like caricaturizing myself a little bit. So I have some other stuff that I want to make that is not in that boat, that I would say is more like some of my other stuff I've released. That's, rock and roll, folk rock, indie rock, that just didn't belong on this record.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I mean, but that leads me to something interesting that we talk about here on the Hang is, if you had an opportunity, and this should be an interesting answer because you definitely are doing multiple things cross genres.
Mm-hmm.
If you had an opportunity to get in a studio for one day with one other musician to collaborate and be creative with, who would it be, and why would you choose them?
That's a hard question. There's a few options. I mean, like, I'd obviously just love to be in a musical space with Bob Dylan, because I think it would be fascinating and like someone I've been obsessed with since I was like 5 years old. Also sounds kind of weird,
Well, after what you said about the song you wrote, I'm sure he's going to, at least if that happens, have some security with him.
That's true. That's true. I think the guy's smart enough to understand sarcasm. I think he kind of like invented sarcasm, like modern Jewish sarcasm. Like he's kind of like that guy. Yeah, I mean, I love this guy, Blake Mills. He's a guitarist and a producer, and I think just like a creative genius as far as like production is concerned. So that would be pretty cool to work with him. I love Sturgill Simpson. I just want to meet him and talk about life and music with that guy. Because I think he's the man, and I love his songs and his attitude. Those are my answers.
All right. Well, look, you never know who's watching today. If
That's
there's
true.
anybody connected to Bob Dylan, hello, ring him up. All right. If you know Sturgis, send him an email. Let's make this happen for Leo. It's important, and we talk about this kind of toward the end of all of our conversations, is supporting our artists, right? Obviously, people will sample you possibly on Spotify or a streaming service, but it's certainly not going to give you the financial necessities of being creative. And it's super important, and we're going to have the links down below, your Bandcamp, we'll have info on the album, everything, so that people go out and support you. If you're in the New York City area and you see Leo is playing, go see him, buy merch, buy his music, support his art. It's the only way that this stuff continues to happen. Unless he changes his name to Taylor Swift and somehow he taps into her account on Spotify, it's just not going to be the same for him. And 38 cents will barely get him a cup of coffee in New York. So please go out and support him. Support all the artists, not only the ones that you see here on the Hang, but your artists that you love in general. But with that, we talk about, 2 or 3 artists that you're kind of digging right now, that if we were just, if we were in the same place having a beer, just sitting down and you'd be like, Scott, you got to take a listen to these people. Who are a couple that you're really jamming out to right now, and someone new, someone old, something that you're just really enjoying that you love sharing?
Um, hmm. I mean, like those guys I just mentioned, Blake Mills, Sturgill Simpson are modern artists. I mean, I kind of got into their albums maybe like 8, 9, 10 years ago. But I view that as current. Um, um, I like MJ Lunderman a lot. Um, he's a newer guy. I don't like listen to that much music all the time, honestly. And I go back and listen to like the same stuff a lot. Recently, I've been finding myself listening to like Little Feat. I love Little Feat. They're one of my favorite bands of all time.
You can't beat a good Dixie Chicken.
You really can't. What else? I listened to this guy Cameron Winter a little bit. I like his album that he put out, Heavy Metal. There's some cool stuff on that. My friends around New York, you know, I've been listening to my friend's band Super Blush a lot. They're great. We've played a lot of shows together. Yeah,
great. Well, definitely, I know that if I can get up to New York sometime soon, I'll be trying to schedule a trip around one of your performances for sure because I'm going to catch you live. Look, Leo, I appreciate you making time. This is a great chance to get to know you. Everybody, you got to check him out. Follow him on his socials. It'll help with his endorphin rush a little bit. Maybe put him in a more positive space. Check out on YouTube, and I'll put the link below his performance on the Tonight Show, and support him and other local musicians. Go out and enjoy local music. Artists big and small, you never know where you're going to find that gem. And Leo, I was so thrilled when you showed up in my Instagram feed. So everybody check him out. Look for him and check out what he's doing. It's super cool. Leo, I appreciate you making time to hang with me. And
absolutely. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you have a lot of success with this album.
Hell yeah. Appreciate everything. It's been nice talking.
Absolutely. Everybody, till we meet again, keep hanging strong, keep hanging out. We'll hang with you soon. Bye for now.